On January 23, 1959, a group of 10 people set out on a skiing expedition in the Ural Mountains, which was then part of the Soviet Union. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, all students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. The goal of the trip was to achieve a Level 3 certification in mountain climbing. The group chose a 10-kilometer route, considered to be one of the most difficult at that time. To reach the starting point, they had to use various means of transportation, including trucks and horse-drawn carriages. On January 27th, they began their ascent from Vitsai to Mount Otorten. The next day, one member, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back due to deteriorating health caused by rheumatism and a congenital heart condition. At the time, Yuri did not know that this decision would save his life due to the mysterious events that would soon unfold. The photos taken then were the last images of Yuri with his 9 friends. After parting ways with Yuri, the group continued on their planned route. They meticulously documented their journey in personal diaries and photos taken with their cameras. Due to the unusual and harsh weather conditions at the end of January, when winter had not yet subsided, the group lost their way and ended up heading west toward Kholat-Syakhl, also known as the Mountain of the Dead. Upon realizing their mistake, the group leader, Igor Dyatlov, decided to set up camp because the team was exhausted. Photos from their cameras show the dense snow at their final campsite. The last entries in the group's diaries were written after this. When the families of the group members received no communication, they grew concerned and requested a rescue operation. On February 20, 1959, the first search mission began, led by a group of volunteers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. The search yielded no results until February 26th, when the group's campsite was discovered. A quick glance was enough to see that something terrible had happened. The tent was found collapsed and buried under a thin layer of snow. No one from the group was in the tent, even though their belongings were still neatly arranged. Upon closer inspection, rescuers found that the tent had been cut open from the inside. 9 sets of footprints led away from the tent towards a forest about 1.5 kilometers away. The regularity of the footprints suggested that the group had left the camp calmly and in an organized manner, not in a state of panic. Following the footprints near the campsite, the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko were found under a Siberian pine tree next to the remains of a small campfire. The bodies were discovered in a state of rigor mortis, with no protective clothing other than thin underwear. The pine tree also showed signs that someone had attempted to climb it, with broken branches up to a height of nearly 5 meters. The bodies of 3 others, Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, were found at varying distances from the tree back towards the campsite. These 3 also lacked proper protection against the deadly cold of the mountain. Although there were signs of injuries on the bodies, all 5 were confirmed to have died from prolonged hypothermia. Deeper into the forest, about 75 meters away, the bodies of the remaining 4 were found buried under 3 meters of snow. 3 of the 4 had suffered severe injuries. 1 had a crushed skull, and the other 2 had significant chest injuries leading to internal bleeding. These injuries were assessed to be as severe as those sustained by car accident victims. 1 of the bodies was also missing a tongue for unknown reasons. However, this was not the strangest finding. Upon examination, experts found a large amount of radiation on the clothing of the victims. Although many pieces of clothing were found to be contaminated, only 3 of them had unusually high levels of radiation. The first 2 pieces belonged to the first body, including pants with 5,000 CPM counts per minute and a belt with 5,600 CPM. The remaining item was a coat worn by the 4th body, which measured up to 9,900 CPM. After identifying the victims, the investigation team believed that the pants and belt belonged to Alexander Kulevatov, while the coat belonged to Yuri Krivonishenko. The report recorded the following observations about these radiation traces. According to the reports, the simplest explanation for this is related to the work of Kolevatov and Krivonishenko. Kolevatov was an outstanding nuclear physics student who had previously worked at a nuclear research facility, while Krivonishenko had participated in a nuclear leak cleanup project not long ago. This could explain the radiation on their clothing, and due to the large amount, it's entirely possible that the radiation spread to the clothing of the other hikers. Missing body parts. After being discovered, Dubinina's body was identified as missing her tongue. Notably, there was a significant amount of blood found in her stomach. Due to these details, many theories about brutal attacks were proposed. However, there's also a simpler explanation. Dubinina's body was affected by external factors. When found, her body was face down in a stream, and due to the strong current and low temperatures, it is entirely possible that the water caused damage to the victim's head region. The amount of blood in Dubinina's stomach could also be explained by severe internal injuries found on her body, which caused internal bleeding. So what really happened? What caused this group to leave the safety of their tent and venture out into the deadly cold on the mountain peak? Many theories have been proposed to explain this mystery, including the involvement of aliens, the Yeti, or weapons testing. The theory considered closest to the truth paints the following picture. On January 31, 1959, the ski group decided to set up camp in an area at risk of avalanches. They had no other choice, as the group could not continue further since night was falling, and all members were exhausted. During the night, a loud noise, possibly from a nearby avalanche, caused at least 5 members of the group to believe that an avalanche was coming down on them. They slashed their tent and rushed outside, wearing only sleepwear, and ran toward the edge of the forest, which was the safest place in the event of an avalanche. Lost in the darkness and thick snowstorm on the mountain peak, these individuals quickly fainted from the sudden drop in body temperature. 2 of them died from hypothermia, and the remaining members made a desperate decision to take the clothing of their deceased friends to keep themselves warm and risk everything to return to camp. One managed to walk 300 meters, the second 480 meters, and the third 630 meters before all succumbed to the cold. Back at the camp, 4 people did not panic and run out in the night. They put on extra clothing and left the tent to search for their friends. They tried for hours until, at some point, a real avalanche occurred. Caught in the dense snow, one suffered a skull fracture, another had broken ribs, and the remaining person sustained multiple injuries. These injuries are understandable and can be compared to the victims of a car accident, given the violent nature of avalanches. Their bodies remained buried under the thick snow and were only found months later by the rescue team. The comprehensive picture of this accident, while perhaps not as dramatic as the intervention of extraterrestrial beings or government-covered assassinations, is the most plausible theory to explain what happened. However, if you still believe in a mystery that goes beyond human understanding, it is entirely understandable because, even now, what happened at Dyatlov Pass remains an unsolved mystery.